Howdy, howdy. We are live on a Friday night with a brand new Tex-Trek podcast talking about this week's new episode of Star Trek Con. And I got Taylor and Dave with me. So we can go ahead and dive on in. I see people chatting, and this is a big episode kicking off the final three episodes, the final stretch, the third act of this 9 episode audio drama. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm Fathery.
This is Dave.
I'm Miss Taylor.
And this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 353rd installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we take a deep look at Star Trek, old and new. And tonight we are discussing Star Trek Con Episode 7, I Am Marla, written by Kirsten Beyer and David Mack, story by Nicholas Meyer, directed by Fred Greenhalgh. And before we dive into this episode of Con that we're going to talk about, just a bit of quick housekeeping per usual. I need to give a big thank you and shout out to the wonderful, delightful, amazing people in the Tex-Trek Patreon who keep our weekly show going. So thank you so very much. Starfleet Sohel, Cake is Eternal, Crazy Dutchie, Joanne Robertson, John Daw, Geek Filter, Quarkspar, Matthew Averett, Braxton, Chuck A, Joel Vallis, Arthur Lamoureux, our associate producer Chris Garris, Dave Farabee, Dave A. Gregory, Joe Saporito, Wanda Valentine, Rin, and our anonymous supporters. We do like to celebrate with our patrons having monthly watch parties. We just did one this last weekend for October, watching the Discovery episode, The Sound of Thunder. And we'll have another one planned soon for November. So I think we're going to do that on Saturday, November 15th. More details to come soon, but those watch parties are open to any and all patrons. You can come in as little as $2 a month to attend those, and if you can afford to be more generous, there are some additional perks as well. So please check out the Tex-Trek Patreon if you are interested in supporting our show. And just a little bit of news. There was going to be a big convention with a lot of Star Trek actors this weekend for the people tuning in live on October 24th. I guess this is actually the first day of San Antonio Space Con. However, most of the Star Trek guests canceled. I guess George Takei is still there. So, but sadly, I know at one point I was saying that Taylor and I would be there, but we decided that we'll just wait and see George in Vegas in August. But it's kind of a bummer because there is some Bruce Greenwood, who plays Kelvin Pike, and Sam Witwer, who I know he hasn't really done much Star Trek, but done a lot of Star Wars stuff. He was one rando Xindi sloth in Star Trek Enterprise Season 3, but he also played Kirk in that weird Roddenberry, that deep fake CGI fan film thing they made that some people really love it, some people hate it. I'm kind of in the middle on it, but it would have been cool to see Sam Witwer, but he canceled. Christina Chong and a bunch of other actors, so... However, we will be on the Star Trek cruise in February, so that's the next convention we're looking at attending. So,
Nice.
And what else do we have on news? I guess Dave, did you have any thoughts on I don't know if you watched any of the stuff from New York Comic Con, but there was that Strange New Worlds clip in that trailer for the Academy show.
I watched the trailer for the Academy show. I'm blanking on it now that you caught me off guard with it. I think this is the one that started with the crazed, or like early on had who's the bad guy?
Paul Giamatti, yeah.
Paul Giamatti with like a crazy collar on and like a chain collar. And he's taking the kids and stuff. That was some pretty wild stuff. I liked it. It was, like Discovery and some of their other entries lately. It felt a little bit Kelvin versy as far as its action to me. What I want is I want one of those things where we see a little bit of a dialogue exchange. I want a little bit of a snippet of a whole scene. I think on that, but I like the trailer for it.
Yeah,
though.
yeah, it looks good. Looks like they're putting like a lot of like effort and budget into. I mean, that doesn't always translate to like a good final product, but
Yeah, it's funny. Like budget is almost always my last concern. The thing about how good modern Trek looks is fairly low on my priority list. Honestly, the audio play of Khan has been reminding me that I'm just like it's the writing stupid. Like that's what I'm there for, and I wouldn't mind if this was cheaper and less flashy in its filming. But it's I don't I don't dislike it. It's nice looking, but I feel like it does some lifting that I would much rather the writing be doing. Um, let's see. What was the clip from? I don't know if I saw the Strange New Worlds
it
clip.
was some ship spinning action.
Right? Yeah.
I think that was actually they're like this is the first scene from season 4, so
Right. I
the
do
season will
definitely
open with
remember
the
some
ship
wild
spinning.
spinning camera work. I don't feel like I have enough to really go on there. It's what were they fighting, or what were they?
They were like going into a nebula
Okay, nothing
or
like.
some anomaly.
Sometimes you got to spin
It
when
was
you go
they
into
were
the
flying the
nebula.
ship into scary red space and had to do a spinning maneuver.
Okay, yeah, I don't have strong feelings about that. My main thing with the Academy is that I'm sad that Tilly's not going to be more heavily featured. But I did I do think that the crew they've got looked fun. I remember that there's a guy that's kind of being a little drill sergeant-y, like maybe I think he had an English accent, and he was kind of doing the snap to kind of thing. He just for a scene or two that I thought was interesting, and I guess we got our first sense of the kid who got kidnapped by or taken by Paul Giamatti. Or no, not he wasn't taken. His mother.
Yeah, yeah. His She-Hulk mom.
Right.
This kid Caleb. I guess it kind of seems like he's gonna be like the main kid. He's
Right.
he's gonna be like Holly Hunter's little protege.
Right. And of course, love Holly Hunter. So I'm excited to check it out.
Cool. But the big thing is that we now have a release date, January 15th. So when the show does premiere in January, we'll be covering it weekly. They haven't set this as an official thing yet, but I think it's likely it'll be a 2 episode premiere because that's what they've been doing with most seasons of Star Trek the last few years. So it'll probably be 2 episodes that first week and then 1 episode a week after that if they continue that pattern. But in the lead up to it, Taylor and I have planned out some content for the foreseeable future of Tex-Trek. After we finish these next few weeks of Star Trek Con, after the audio drama releases its final episode November 3rd, we'll of course discuss that finale episode that week. And then after that, we'll do a couple shows we've talked about before, a backtracking retrospective on the TOS episode Space Seed. We'll go back and look at the debut appearance of Khan after getting this new context from the audio drama. And then the week after that, we'll do a show called The Wrath of Khan Revisited, when we go back and take a look at all of the Khan scenes of Wrath of Khan. We don't need to watch Savick do the Kobayashi Maru again, but all the con stuff, will probably lens a little differently now going forward. And then after November, we want to spend a lot of time in December and early January looking at some Academy episodes from Legacy Star Trek. So I got to do the First Duty, one of my all-time favorite episodes of The Next Generation. But also a coming of age with that season 1 episode where Wes is taking like the entrance exams. Maybe a couple other Academy episodes, and also we're gonna want to take a look at some Doctor episodes from Voyager, because we're gonna get. It's funny, Dave. It is sad that we're only gonna get one episode of Tilly next year, but we're gonna get 10 episodes of the Doctor next year.
I mean, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. By the way, Father, I think you should include the School of Hard Knocks that Charlie X had to go through under Captain Kirk's tutelage, getting thrown around, judo thrown, and Kirk explaining the birds and the bees to him. Sure. I think that's an important bit of schooling right there.
We'll watch that. And it's not Star Trek, but we'll just go ahead and throw in Jack Black's School of Rock.
Yes, yeah. There's probably a Trek connection in there somewhere.
I'm sure. I've never seen it, so maybe, who knows?
Oh, man, that's a good movie.
Well, I don't have anything else that is news related, so we can go ahead and start talking about this episode of Con. But
first, Fathery, I have to tell you, I got my mind took just 1 second. I've got the Star Trek relation to it. Sarah Silverman plays the wife of his best friend, and of course, Sarah Silverman guest starred in Voyager.
Yeah.
So there we go.
In 2 episodes of Star Trek, technically, because that was a 2-parter. So
that's true.
She is a Star Trek recurring character.
Yep.
Fun stuff.
This is like the relation to Kevin Bacon thing y'all are doing, but with Star Trek.
Yeah. There's always got to be something.
It's pretty easy to do, even with like a lot of like older movies. There's so many TOS actors, so it's not hard.
In the audience, we had Rachel was about to mention it too. She said. But yeah, that'd be a fun a little aside to do sometime is play the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon with Star Trek. See how close you could get stuff to Trek. I don't know when y'all are bored, or maybe during one of the watch-alongs.
Yeah, or on the long flight to Star Trek Las Vegas next year.
Yeah. But yeah, carry on, Father. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, moving into I Am Marla, I'm just going to quickly recap the episode by reading the synopsis, and then I'll expand on that with spoilers. But the synopsis reads, forging a tenuous alliance... Did I say that word right? Tenuous?
Tenuous.
Tenuous, that's how you say it. Yeah, there you go. Forging a tenuous alliance... Khan's followers and the Elboreans work toward possible mutual survival. As Khan weighs hard choices affecting both peoples, tragedy strikes. And yes, Khan has to figure out what to do with Ivan, what to do with not being the guy who's the head honcho, the buck stops with me. I have to share leadership responsibilities. I have to share decision making with this alien, Delmonda. But they have to figure out what to do with Ivan, this guy who's committed murder, this guy who is being this criminal element in this peaceful society they're trying to build. So while Khan is struggling with that and honestly toying with the idea of, kind of showing some growth and development, at least like he sees like the possibility, he has like a few lines like I'm learning to compromise and stuff like that. But while he's struggling with those options and those decisions, of course, Marla McGivers is finally ill-attacked and has to make the choice between do we save the mom or the baby kind of thing. And, of course, Marla is doomed to die, as we knew going into this audio drama. So, but we end the thing with a little bit of new information that the spaceship we learned about last episode that the Elboreans are building, it can hold 4 people. So
yeah, they've made it tricky as to who all might get out.
Yeah, I mean we know Delmonda is sending emails to Dr. Lear at some point in the future, so he's probably going to make it out of there. But
What if it's somebody wearing a Delmonda skin mask?
Yeah, or just
y'all just watch.
It's
Y'all just watch
shapeshifters all along.
Y'all just watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There could be some evil Ed Gein type. Ivan survives, and he's got the Delmonda mask.
That would be a twist I didn't see coming.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's seen that one yet. I like to throw out my long shots in case anybody wants to go and put some betting odds on it.
Well, Dave, why don't you give us the first opening statement and just say your broad thoughts on the episode?
Yeah. I didn't really have time to make notes on this one, so I'll be a little bit more off the cuff. But I did jot down a few things just for the intro, and the main thing I sort of wanted to emphasize about this is actually something I've kind of talked about before, which is that I'm shocked to the degree to which this show is suspenseful and can surprise me, even though we have the outcome of the basics are all out there. Mm-hmm. Because we had already seen, they had shown Khan kind of trying to be his best, put his best foot forward early on in the show, and then sort of continually being sort of drawn down by his sort of warlike tendencies. And I was like, oh, well, when these aliens show up, he's going to go into survival mode, and that's the end of that arc. Now is the beginning of his tyrannical survivalist arc. And I was like, oh shit, no, they're not. It's nothing as simple as that. He's still trying. He's making a last ditch effort, maybe inspired by, his family, the possibility of having a kid, and his closeness to oh my gosh, I suddenly can't say it, Marla. She gets the episode title and I was blanking. So I loved seeing that. He's actually like trying with Delmonda, or at least seems to be. He's not what he tells Ivan. But it seems like he's trying to stretch one last time before the shit will hit the fan. And so I've really, really liked that. And I liked all the other surprises. There's other surprises in there too. Like, what is it? Like you said 4 people could escape. That's opens up all sorts of little doors. And it means that, yes, I know that we're going to get something like we expected, which is that is it Dr. Lear? Is she a doctor? Mm-hmm. Dr. Lear has some relation, is Marlon Khan's kid or whatever. But I don't know what all else we might get out of it. It feels like there's going to be multiple surprises on that front. We saw Ursula and Ivan forming their little subversive coalition, which I was like, oh, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And then I got kind of so caught up in it that I didn't even think about the possibility that this is when Marla goes. I think we all thought that was maybe going to happen earlier, and here we are near to the end of it. This is very much her story. They didn't let her go by the wayside in these 8 episodes. It's called Khan, but we got an episode called I Am Marla at the 3/4 point ish, something like that. So yeah, I was really enjoying that, and seeing Khan kind of twist and turn to see if he can build a coalition with these aliens, and then maybe he's being subversive, and at the same time Ivan is trying to trick him into this to being poisoned. So there's multiple kind of moments of trickery going on, and I continue to really like oh my gosh, Paolo, that's his name, right? He's enjoying him, and I guess we probably got more of a showcase of Joachim in this one, but I was shocked that a supporting character would end up like one of my favorites, and Paolo is getting there, man. The one last thought I want to say is, because I was talking about how much the writing reminded me, or I was reminded that like I really want good writing to always be at the heart of Star Trek, and they had such good writing to kick off the show. It's like a trademark of it. That I'm lobbying for David Mack to be in the writers' room. We need some upcoming Trek show.
We need Kirsten Beyer to be the showrunner on a show with
right. They're kind of they have
David
a team
Mack
thing.
Is like the head writer.
Yes, I would love a voice on a show that was something like what we're getting here, because it's got depth of character. There's big action and stuff still going on. There's the moral dilemmas I want from Star Trek. Like I feel like it's hitting all the things I want. And at the same time, I'm getting a little bit of fan service with Tuvok and Sulu and all that. So, anyway, I continue to enjoy it, and I'm working with the one part that I kind of felt a little tentative about, which is I think the Elboreans, the Elbs as they're calling them. That they just felt a little out of place as far as like that's the biggest expanded universe thing that we've seen so far, and I'm like, well, it's so far from what I expected that my mind is continuing to try and work to wrap around it. But I like what they're doing with them. So I'm working with it. It's as close as I get to a complaint, really, I guess.
Well, Miss Taylor, tell us your opening statement thoughts before we go into our episode breakdown. What's your broad takeaway on I Am Marla?
To say I was sobbing at the end is an understatement. I was actually really mad about a lot, which we can go into later, but a lot of the things I was really hoping wouldn't happen are happening in this episode regarding like Marla's pregnancy. So I don't know. Some of that was a little disappointing to me. But I liked, Khan and Ivan interaction. I liked Khan and Delmonda's interaction. Again, was excited to see more Ursula. I think she might be one of my favorite characters in this, just because I feel like she's just so angry and like, I don't know. She always kind of surprises me. Like when she softens and when she hardens, like it's always a little bit interesting. Like I loved getting like her flip, like her being against Khan now. And kind of like, that was like a really big reveal to me. Like I didn't see that coming.
She's walking a sort of like knife's edge where I'm like, she didn't fully say, "Oh, I'm behind you, Ivan. Like I'll do anything. We got to do this." She said, "I don't know whether to wish you success or failure," and I'm like, "Oh, that makes her an interesting and kind of dynamic character in this."
Yeah, but whenever Mado kind of says, like we have to serve Khan or we'll die, and Ursula says, "I think we serve Khan and we die," and I was like, "Oh yeah, she's done." But yeah, I liked a lot of that. I was really sad about I mean, everything that happened to Marla in this episode makes me really sad to talk about. But yeah, overall, I do think it was a good episode. It's pushing the story forward. And I'm kind of like scared with how little there is left to go through, like with only 2 more episodes and a lot to wrap up. Yeah, but I
wonder if there's any possibility that a bunch of the last episode will be in the present.
That'd be cool. I would like that.
Yeah.
And maybe like with the reveal that like, well, if Delmonda could show up, other people that we think died on Ceti Alpha V could show up. Ivan could show up in the Delmonda skin mask. But I certainly Dr. Lear will have some notable stuff going on too.
Yeah, I think for what's left of the story, that's what I'm most excited about. Like everything else, now that we're like deep in Marla's fate, the most I'm excited about right now is figuring out who Dr. Lear is, and I'm kind of like curious how much Tuvok is going to discover, or is she going to tell him, with like all that. So yeah, I'm excited for more, but I'm warier now. I feel like this episode, as good as it was, it really knocked me down in excitement.
It's not going to be as good of an ending as what you were hoping for. Now, some of the possibilities have been eliminated. So,
yeah, exactly.
Anyone hoping for like a happy Marla alive and well to somehow miraculously have survived, which I always thought like they weren't going to retcon her death was the one thing I was pretty sure of. They wouldn't change, but.
Did I miss? I didn't remember that. Were you rallying for the possibility that Marla lives?
Yeah, I was thinking maybe like Karn would be so far gone that she escapes with her baby pregnant, and he thinks that she gets killed,
or they fake Ursula, it, or somebody covers.
Yeah, like Ursula like helps cover them. Yeah, so I'm a little bit sad that we're not getting that, but it's fine. Like they can do whatever.
Let me just ask
but it's gonna take me a while.
This is a messed up thing to ask, but. Because we see the scene where they're talking about it and they say they can't remove the Ceti eel, I think Khan is there for that.
Mm-hmm.
What if that was all a show for Khan? What if it was?
If they had this whole conspiracy,
It would be
to...
great because it's not like we saw any behind the scenes thing. It's not like we heard Marla talking separate from Khan. I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong. And that would be we would have heard the same show they're performing for Khan. I'm just throwing it out there. 4 seats.
Yeah.
What else? Who else would be interesting to have in there? The rock and roll listening to Elboreans,
Yeah.
or pop rock, whatever they were listening to.
Yeah, they're gonna go up in that ship like Zephram Cochrane in First Contact.
Yeah. My bets are on the baby and Paolo for the 2 humans. That
Jamming out to Steppenwolf.
Yeah, but Father A, I don't know if this was actual. I assume it was original music that they did for this. It sounded a little bit more like, I don't know, kind of like 90s pop to me.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just
2000s.
very ambiguous music from some decade.
Yeah. What if it was Guar?
Yeah, it would have been cool, but it also would have been more expensive than whatever they just paid to create.
Yeah, no doubt. Anyway, what Father A, I'm sorry, or Taylor, were you done? I didn't.
Yeah, I'm done enough. I'll say more later.
Sure.
Well, for me, like Dave, I'm really excited that at this point in the final 3 episodes, we still have so much to be excited about, and there's still reveals that we're looking forward to. You know, despite knowing the conclusion is going to be The Wrath of Khan, this movie from the 80s that most of us have seen 100 times. So not only is this audio drama succeeding at telling an interesting story despite us knowing where it leads, but it also does some really great traditional Star Trek thinking. Like, this episode in particular, it asks a lot of questions about how to handle peaceful individuals in a peaceful society when they have to deal with an unpeaceful person causing problems. You know, there's this whole conversation of how much of a responsibility does the community have to rehabilitate this other individual versus, you know, at what point do you say, okay, they've crossed the line, we're just going to have to excommunicate them. So I like that, it's asking these questions, that it's doing this kind of traditional Star Trek thought experiment. This it is kind of a standard thing, 2 crews from 2 different ships stranded on a desert island with limited resources, and that's.
But usually the Elboreans would be the heroes. Here, they're arguably the antagonists in the sense that Khan and his guys are at least our protagonists. And it's. I feel like you're totally right, Father. Like they're handling it with some nuance, even though it is a kind of traditional Trek concept.
Yeah, but that's a good point that I hadn't considered. That having kind of that role reversal of the antagonist and the protagonist, that does make it a bit more subversive than I was giving the overall story credit for. So
it's kind of like in like Breaking Bad or something, where you follow somebody who's doing some pretty devious stuff for a while, but they are the lead, and you do get invested in them succeeding, and. So yeah, we kind of want Khan to succeed or to somehow avoid his trajectory if he can help it, even though we know he can't. And but we don't know how things end up with the Elboreans.
And I've compared this audio drama a bit to Macbeth, which I feel is like the granddaddy of those stories where the protagonist is both he's the good guy and the bad guy of the story at the same time. He's the protagonist and the antagonist.
You watch his downfall.
Yeah, And I think that is, where I want things to end up with Khan. That is kind of my fear, is that I don't want Khan's peaceful colony idea to have been ruined because of Ivan or because of some Ceti eels. I want it to be because of Khan's own just his hubris and arrogance and ambition. And that, it doesn't matter what century he's in, what planet he's on, he's always going to bring himself down.
I agree. I do hope that's where they're going. I think that's where they're going. But they surprised me by suggesting at least a second chance for him in this one. Do y'all think he was telling the truth, that he told Ivan, he's like, oh, I'm playing him. He's like, we'll find out what we can, and then I'll do what I need to do, or whatever it was he said. I was like, how sincere was he when he was offering to compromise?
Yeah.
I guess we can hash that out when we get to the scene.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into our episode breakdown then. Just starting off briefly with some Tuvok and Lear at the beginning. Lear apologizes to Tuvok about yelling at him at the end of the episode last time, right? When she was freaking out about finding that Tuvok had been spying on her. But she talks a little bit more about herself in that the area of her studies is the sexy topic, the quote unquote sexy topic of augment discrimination. And she's just telling Tuvok, like, oh yeah, it's really interesting. All these people that are discriminated against are having just like a little bit of augment DNA, and
he's all like, Starfleet's going to be less likely than anybody to do that, and she's like, you'd be surprised. That's a little kind of Deep Space Nine type sentiment working its way in there.
But she claims that that's why Delmonda contacted her with, like, oh, I have all these logs and recordings and stuff about Khan, this augment from the eugenics wars on Ceti Alpha V. And Tuvok doesn't believe, like, he calls bullshit on her. He's like, I don't know why you're lying, but you clearly are.
Yeah, that was, I like them letting these characters kind of have these kind of like harsh kind of moments. They butt heads hard, but they both also softened a little bit. He was like, no, you were right to be angry. I was spying on you.
Yeah. Yeah, they start off kind of like apologizing to each other and forgiving each other, but then they end on kind of negative terms again, because then Tuvok is like, well, don't be surprised if you get more anti-tampering device notifications. I'm going to keep spying on you.
Will continue until morale improves.
And Lear kind of freaks out a little bit. She's kind of like having to calm herself down. She's like, just stop it. Control yourself.
She's got big secrets. What were you saying, Taylor?
She's hiding something.
Yeah, I took it as Tuvok just kind of being like, hey, I have to still follow orders. Like, he's like, I want to be on your side, but I don't believe you. And, like, I don't know. I think it's cool for him to still be, like, honest with Sulu and, like, make reports. But I feel like Tuvok still isn't, like, going to go running to Sulu, like, yeah, she's definitely conspiratorial. I don't know. Like, I feel like he's going to keep it pretty tame for him. But Tuvok, I think, is just, like, piqued in curiosity. So he's just like, let's see how this plays out,
Yeah, I think he's developed a level of respect for her, and maybe kind of wants her to, like, have some justification for lying. And, doesn't want it to just be that it's, she's being duplicitous to, advance herself or some secret mission or something like that. I think he wants her to be honest with him and reveal all whatever the painful secret is. But he kind of comes at things, kind of hard ass, kind of cop style, and so they've got to work around that. I liked when he talked about a slightly more nuanced way of the can Vulcans lie or not, and he's like, well, it's really difficult for us, and some of us can't do it at all, and so it's a big thing for us. Truth is a big thing for us. Mm-hmm. So
I like that kind of he was like, Vulcans are BS detectors is kind of like what I got from that line. He was like, yeah I like picked up on your lying immediately as a Vulcan. Yeah. So I thought that was kind of fun to hear from him, especially knowing like about his little bit of like Vulcan rebelliousness as a teenager or whatever. So that's kind of fun.
She definitely panicked at the end there, though. She was she was having an anxiety attack. Yeah. And so I'm like, what is the secret?
So, like, I feel like the most obvious thing is that, like,
she's got augment DNA?
Well, that she is Khan and Marla's baby, and that at one point Delmonda flees Ceti Alpha V with her.
Why would that need to be a secret?
Yeah.
I mean...
Because she doesn't want to live as an augment in the Federation.
I mean, that makes sense. And I guess she's risking that.
And maybe she thinks if she can find out, like, oh, actually, Khan wasn't that bad of a guy, maybe she thinks that'll lead to an end to augment discrimination.
Right. Whereas what may come out will be more like Khan was that bad of a guy or became that bad of a guy, but also you are correct that there's unfair discrimination, and Tuvok may be like, let me do what I can to help you out.
But
what if Tuvok maroons her down Kirk style?
It could be something else as her secret, but I just feel like that's the most obvious thing right now. Or at least, like, in my mind, that's the most obvious.
They don't have a lot of episodes left for big twists, but there's definitely going to be something.
Yeah, I think this is very far-fetched, but what if Dr. Lear is an Elborean, and she's, like, in disguise as a
she
human
talks.
somehow?
She has vocal cords. She talks.
Oh, okay. We'll pitch that one way out then.
Or do they think that she talks because she makes their mind see her mouth move, but then she's an advanced telepath? That feels like something an advanced telepath could do. I do think that like Kirsten Beyer and David Mack probably are they're for sure going to be at least one or two, maybe up to three twists on expectations in these last two episodes to come.
Well, let's move on to the flashback to Marla's log. She's making a entry talking about how she misses the sunrise out on the sea. They don't have that anymore with the fallout of Ceti Alpha 6 and the now clouded sky they have to live under on Ceti Alpha 5. This is interesting stuff, though. She talks about, like, that was dependable and constant to see the sunrise over the sea every morning. But I guess it actually isn't that dependable and constant. So maybe it never was to begin with. And
I didn't realize that's a visual metaphor for kind of some of what's going on in this episode. Khan not being Khan seemingly bending on some of his, total his authoritarian tendencies. Ivan's certainly not the loyalist that he has been known to be.
That's something that Marla mentions when she says, maybe at one point Khan was this guy, or I'm sorry, maybe at one point Ivan was this guy that Khan wants him to still be, but I hope that he was, but it doesn't seem like he is anymore, if he ever was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they exchanged some harsh words. If I thought Tuvok and Lear got a little snippy with each other, Khan and Ivan go at it, man.
Oh yeah.
What were we saying, Taylor?
I was gonna say that this episode is very heavy-handed too, like on re-listen of like Marla's demise in this episode. Like many times she's like, "I'm dying to do this. I can't not like live without having done this or whatever." Like there's multiple times where it's very heavy on the foreshadowing, like on re-listen.
Oh,
what's funny? I didn't notice that.
I didn't notice any of that either.
Yeah, there's a bunch.
But I also only listened once.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's like a few lines where she's like impending doom, but she's like saying it and it's ironic when you're like listening back. You're like, oh shit, like this is her last day, and like this, when she's talking about like the sunrise on the sea, kind of makes me also feel like that's a foreshadowing for her, like, I don't know, just, I'm mad about it. So, okay, sorry, we'll get to that later. But,
I mean, that was like the most set in stone thing, it's kind of like Peter Parker's Uncle Ben has to die.
I guess, yeah, I don't want to talk I don't want to like rush forward on it, but like, I'm not mad about her dying. I'm mad about like how and what happened. So we'll get into it later, but
we'll come to it.
Anyways, So Khan and Delmonda also have a discussion in this about their shared prisoner Ivan. I thought that was this is like when they're talking about like, well, what do we do with him? Like, how do we compromise together, right?
Yeah.
And Khan's like, oh, well, this is going to be incredibly difficult.
Yeah, he's like already
like, well, what about this? And then he's like, oh, well, that'd probably be okay. And he's like, see, we can do it. And I guess that is the question: is like, was Khan being sincere there, or was
right?
We know that he at least told Ivan, he's like, yes, I'm playing him.
Yeah.
And I think that's partially true. I kind of appreciate the ambiguity where we're like, well, if you yourself are kind of taken with Khan and want to think that he meant more than he didn't mean, then you can take it that way. But I have a feeling that he was fairly truthful to Ivan.
There's two conversations, I guess, between Khan and Ivan in this episode. We get one here, and then one at the almost at the very end. And the one that we get here, though, when Khan talks to prisoner Ivan for the first time after he'd been taken prisoner by the Elboreans, Ivan he's saying it's kind of what Taylor was talking about last week when you were gone, Dave. But Taylor was pointing out that when Khan sent Ivan out on recon when he went and killed an Elborean.
Mm-hmm.
Ivan said, "I'll go watch them and I'll learn how to kill them." And Taylor is like, "Well, the only way that you learn how to kill something is if you actually kill it." So, and Ivan kind of at this point, he kind of admits he's like, like I told you, I was going out there to do a reconnaissance. Like now we know. Now we know if we find one by themselves, they're weak. They can be killed. And
by the way, I gotta say, like, I know that like Ivan is not the brains of the outfit, but aren't there like 400 of these dudes? You can't just be picking off 400 fucking dudes and think that they're not going to notice and use their super mind powers to crush you.
Well, when you're a hammer, every problem looks like a nail, kind of thing.
he's a larger than life character, but I think kind of fits. He, especially in this sort of, if I think of him as like kind of with a TOS look to him. It'd be kind of fun to cast him with an actor from the 60s for the visual and not sort of imagine how he looked in the modern times, but kind of how he looked then. And there, there was a bigness to Star Trek, that pretty much there always is, but a lot of some people will say it's over the top, in TOS, and I think Ivan fits that.
I always picture him wearing like one of the red jumpsuits they were wearing in Space Seed. So that's how I picture this Russian brute.
I assume that they've modded them a little bit. I bet it looks a little bit more survivalist-y, and there's more kind of gear and maybe like some furs or some leather gloves and things that they've made since getting there. But yeah, I do think that the red jumpsuits would be a part of it.
But I
hope people do some fan art of this because I would love to see it. This partially ashen sky that they've got now, that giant underground lake with portions of a ship beside it. There's lots of what would I think would be cool visuals. I want to see the kids out on the plateau jamming out to their music.
Yeah. I mean, they could always make an animated version of this. But in this conversation between Khan and Ivan, the truth does come out about Hugo. Ivan admits to killing Hugo.
Right.
So.
I forgot that it was a confession.
Mm-hmm.
Khan might have suspected it before, but he's just straight up said it.
Yeah. I think this was like really... I don't know. Like whenever Ivan is mad about... Khan like not being as strong of a leader, and he is like, I even tolerated your wife, like he's like listing all of these complaints he has about
he's
Khan.
Jealous. Ivan is in love with Khan, and he's so jealous. Like this thing with Marla, he's like, oh, like they're married and she's pregnant. I guess this is permanent. I guess I've really lost him forever now.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's extremely, I don't know, an intense conversation, but it's also just like this like impending doom, like the entire, because you're also thinking like, oh well, Khan and like Delmonda just discussed Ivan, and like we know like Ivan's kind of gonna get off easy, like he doesn't know that yet, kind of thing. But I don't know. It's really dark.
There's like this sense of fate hanging over a lot of things in this episode. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like this really, like, Ivan's like this anchor in the past, and he's like mad that everyone's moving forward and like changing and like, adapting. And he's like, hell no, and like, obviously, like, that's his downfall here, is like just being stuck in this past. And like Marla discusses this with Delmonda about him having like, he's like war torn, right? That's like all he's known.
Yeah, and Khan mentions he's like, "You've saved my life many times."
Yeah. So yeah, I'm surprised, with where Ivan ends up in this too. Like we'll get there later, but yeah, I don't know. I was surprised with a lot of things that happened in this episode. Like it's like what I really thought that Khan would have killed Ivan here. Like maybe like in Space Seed, if any of this transpired, Khan would have just killed Ivan. I feel like, and like because we have like some character growth here, like he doesn't, and like there's other things hanging in the air, like with
who's it, Delmonda. Since he and Delmonda had decided Ivan's fate, if Khan had let his anger take control or his need for justice or vengeance, and he had killed Ivan, how would Delmonda have taken it? Would he have said, "Oh, I guess we're not"?
Yeah, that's the reason why Khan doesn't kill him.
No, like, I know,
but later. But
I know, but that's what I'm saying. Is like it's wild that we have like this big change in Khan, and like that's what Ivan's pissed about, right? Is like this big change in Khan, and like we're actively.
He's like, "You're a cuck now, Khan. You're a soy boy."
But it's like also Ivan, you get to live now because of that. So like,
right?
Maybe chill.
I think that'll be a problem later that Ivan doesn't want to live. He's like, when we get to it, like he's like literally like in tears, like please kill me. Like how can you not kill me right now?
Yeah. That's some good writing. That was cool. Like he's like pissed that Khan doesn't have it in him to kill him for his betrayal.
I put on my notes as moving day / deal with Ivan day, because that comes up on the same day. They're moving their settlement into the caves, but it's also the day that Delmonda and Khan have designated they will decide the fate of Ivan. There's some things that happen before that, though, that I want to cover real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So Marla and Khan have a little conversation discussing baby names, kind of like our last cutesy happy family moment between the two of them. But they decide on Kali, the Hindu goddess.
Mm-hmm. With lots of connotations that come with it. And an interesting conversation from Khan, who we know doesn't hold religious beliefs.
Yeah. They talk
he's
about.
Like, yeah, what does he say? He's like, it doesn't even matter. He's like, what it means. It's about like the an expression of somebody traveling through the universe, or how the universe defines itself. I didn't write anything down for this, but it was an interesting conversation, I found.
But yeah, I thought it was cool to talk about how, humans create all these gods and mythologies just to give names and faces and I guess like an identity to eternal concepts, like sunrises, like Marla was talking about at the very beginning, or, like rivers or the moon, or, like anything like that throughout history. Humans associate, kind of like personalities and identities to these things, and we come up with these god characters as a way of, I guess, just thinking about those concepts.
Yeah, and I think that was a pretty cool read on it. And, we know that Khan is not above like figurative speaking, that he takes inspiration from Moby Dick and Paradise Lost.
Yeah, no, he loves literature.
He has a poetic turn of voice sometimes. So thinking in sort of symbolic ways is something that comes naturally to him. I think that was probably the writers working some of this out. Like, what does he think about that? Why does if there's no sense of spirituality in him, then how do some of these voices that might have a spiritual overtones? Why does he find meaning in it? And we see now he's like, oh well, they're expressing universal truths. They just happen to do it through religion sometimes, or this kind of imagery.
And that's the type of character exploration that is much more common to do in a novel or a TV show these days, but you can't really get into in a movie or like an episode of the week type appearance like Space Seed. Although it is interesting to see how Space Seed, most of the stuff that they're exploring in this was
at least broached in Space Seed. The
Yeah,
idea
that
of
was a hell of a seed, that episode. They planted something.
they did, but certainly they talked about our infatuation with conquerors and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
their charismatic nature, and Kirk's desire to see him be better than he kind of was. Like that was all in there. So kudos to OG writers.
And they also talk a little bit about, I guess like a debate of 19th century poets of, Keats and Coleridge and Wordsworth and all that. But this is also when we get Paulo jamming out to Ivan's boombox, and he's joined by Joachim and Erica when they're jamming out, and the Elboreans that are out there to monitor the debris coming into the atmosphere. They're trying to calculate launch vectors.
Or so they say.
That is true. I took it at face value, but
but they did. Khan was right. That leaked to the younger augments, and then to the rest of the colony, the ship plan and all of that. And I'm wondering if I don't know exactly what Zomanda seems to be he seems to be. Would you all say he seems to be the sort of kind, thoughtful person he claims?
Yeah, I said last week he's like the cool version of Khan. He's like, oh, like this exile got kicked off of his planet. He's just trying to look after his people and establish a new colony on this world, and is like, but he actually has like pretty cool values, and seems like an all right guy. So he's like the cool version of Khan. I said.
Yeah, he said that in this one that they were gonna that they would accept that some of their own people would go to another settlement point like 1,000 kilometers away, and that they were willing to risk it. But he's not wrong that he did sort of force Khan's hand by getting that out there, and I do wonder if Delmonda's a little bit more sophisticated than has been let on.
Yeah, I just took them at face value that these aliens are just like, oh, that music sounds cool. We've never heard that before. We'll spill all the beans on the spaceship if you let us hear more of this cool sound. But they were also kind of like, oh, please don't hurt us, because after what Ivan did, they're kind of scared.
Yeah, the sound effects on that in that previous episode, I wasn't here to talk about it with y'all, but that was brutal.
That was nasty. Yeah.
They really went to town with that beatdown. I see in the audience, Joanne says she's not convinced that Delmonda is being forthcoming. I do wonder about that. Like, we haven't seen him be overtly duplicitous, but I felt like we've seen him manipulate a little bit. So, which admittedly is probably the smart play. If you're smart enough to know that somebody like Khan is a real danger, then you kind of have to handle them. They have to be dealt with in such a way that they don't get triggered and go full, kill mode. You got to kind of see how you can work with this dude.
Yeah. I also feel like I took this more at face value. Like, okay, I don't think they're like trying to be extra manipulative, but I do think it is possible they were trying to feel out more of Khan's people, because Delmonda keeps being like, is Khan like Khan and Ivan, like these are the ones he's interacted with the most, and he keeps asking like, is this what it like a normal person is like for your group? Mm-hmm. And so I feel like it was almost like reconnaissance of the Elboreans to like run into the kids.
Yeah.
Because I think they're like, well, let's see what the kids are like. Like, are they cool? Like, have they been like indentured already into this like war mind,
I think it was just a coincidence. I think they were just up on the mesa because that's where they needed like the view of the debris.
Yeah.
But Khan did point it out. He
That's, and I think that's Khan being paranoid and kind of.
I mean, that's fair.
I think
that's
the writers
fair.
put it in there to be like, look how weird and untrusting.
Right.
This
This
guy
is how he sees everything through that lens. Yeah. I did really like that scene, by the way, and like it's not. It gives you these moments in what is really a big tragedy, where like, oh, cool. There was this scene where like basically the teenagers kind of had a moment. Right? They had, before everything went to shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they got to like celebrate and just be kids and experience alien interaction, first
Yeah,
contact.
and later Marla even comments on like, look, that's how it should be. This young human excited to talk to a new alien. You know, like that's
Yeah.
what the 23rd century is normally like.
Yep.
We also get the scene between Ursula and Mado when Ursula, I guess, is trying to like nurse Mado back to good health. She's trying to get her to eat, and Mado is depressed after losing the baby and is blaming herself, and Ursula is blaming Khan, and it's Mado's like, well, it wasn't Khan's fault that the other planet blew up, and Ursula's like, no, but it's his fault that we're stuck here. He didn't have to try to take over the Enterprise, and so Ursula is. She's in her grief. She's like she is done with Khan. She is like this guy cannot be trusted to lead us anymore. He's a moron. I'm done with him.
I liked that flip a lot.
Yeah, it felt reasonable. We've seen, we saw even in the first episode. Who was the guy? Hugo was calling out Khan for making bad decisions here and there, and there was some truth in what he said. He might have been, just, making a power play, but there was definitely still some truth in what he said. And, we talked about Khan's relative victories versus losses. And yeah, he kind of has had some big ones. He got to run Earth. He got to take over the Enterprise, but it does seem like he does set himself up for failure too. And, at a certain point, some of these people, especially if they're looking to build lives for like children, they're like, oh, fuck this.
But then we have moving day / deal with Ivan day. And this starts with Marla is going to lead everyone carrying the supplies into the caves while Khan goes off to Del Monda to deal with Ivan. And there's I guess it's the last conversation before Marla's ill attack between Marla and Khan. But Khan tells her, look, at the end of the day, when y'all get everything moved into the cave and you go and chill and have your hot springs bath, have someone in there standing guard over you just to keep an eye on you. And, like, it didn't even occur to me there, like, anything bad would happen. Maybe that should have been, like, a red flag. Maybe that should have been, like, a red alert moment, but...
I like when that happens, to be honest, because it means that I'm, like, enmeshed enough in the story that I'm not analyzing it. And... Like there are times even in like really good things that I do kind of step outside it a little bit and I can sort of see the currents of the arcs and stuff. But I was completely clueless about this one.
Y'all cracked me up because as soon as she was like, I'm going to try out those hot springs, I was like, no, it's too soon.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I was like, that is not good. So, yeah, I was just
like, oh, this is cute. She's like, oh, hey, Joachim, tell Khan that I live here now. And I was like, oh,
see?
What a cute
That's
scene.
another thing. She lives there now. Like, that to me feels a little bit foreshadowy of like, she's done. Like, I don't know. Like, that kind of seemed a little foreshadowing to her death, too. And...
You live here now? You actually die here now. You live here,
you die here now. Yeah, like there's irony in some of the things that she's saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Gross.
It's almost like this was written by like a novelist.
Yeah.
But yeah, Marla's gonna go handle the moving, the young people excited to hear about the spaceship. And Ursula goes and has a drink with Ivan in captivity. She like tells like the guards like, oh, Khan wants me to see the prisoner. She gets in there, and this is when Ivan says, oh, I have this wine from Kashmir years ago. I'm going to offer Khan a drink. I'll ask for forgiveness and grovel and apologize. And then when he has this drink, it'll be laced with cyanide. So Ivan is claiming there, he has this plan to poison Khan and then take over as the new leader, and then he'll kill all the Elboreans, or at least most of them, and then make some of them their servants. And Ursula seems on board with this. I think at this point, Ivan, he's accepted that Khan will never love him. He's heartbroken, and he's decided, like, I'm going to attack Khan. I'm going to offer him this poison, knowing that he'll know that it's poison, and then he'll kill me. It's like suicide by betrayal.
It's the if I can't have you, no one else can trope.
Yeah, or kind of like if I can't have you, then I don't want to live anymore.
And he didn't just like sort of test the waters with Ursula. He told her everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was also drunk.
He knew, though, I think that he was, like, in his mind, because it's life for a life, like, he knew he was on the chopping block, so he's like, what the hell? Like, I don't have much to lose, you know?
Right.
In his mind, I think he already felt like a dead man.
But yeah, like, good performance from the Ivan voice actor. I should learn who's doing that, but very very evil and ominous.
But it was also interesting to see him bond a little bit with Ursula, like when he's, when they are, talking about it. And I guess he does this with Khan too. I might be blurring it a little bit when they talk about saving that bottle, but yeah, there's a little bit of that. Hey, remember the old days?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that they've established with Ursula is that she is slow to trust. It took a long time before Marla could get on Ursula's good side. And with these Elboreans showing up, Ursula is kind of on the more... she's the more conservative, the more hawkish, the more paranoid, the more fearful camp that Ivan leans towards. That this is unacceptable for them to have this big of a power advantage over us. Like this is totally unacceptable. We have to neutralize this threat. And
I wonder how much of it is that, and how much of it is like she has undirected anger and bitterness, and it just has to go somewhere.
And I think it's like a combination. I also think like being someone who was just under the assumption they were going to become like a new parent, they're also like a bit more protective. And sometimes that can bring out hostility in people.
For sure.
But moving on past Ursula and Ivan, there's the Khan Delmonda conversation, where this is when Khan accuses Delmonda of like, oh, you were intentionally leaking information to my people. It's like a power play, in which I think that was just Khan being a little
what did
paranoid.
Delmonda say to that?
Uh,
Get out of here.
Yeah, basically. He was like, of course you would think that.
Yeah.
But he was just... He had... It does seem that, like, Delmonda was prepared for this conversation. So I guess if he was being dishonest, like, he was pretty careful to come up with all this stuff. Because he has answers for, like, all of Khan's questions.
I thought that was interesting. He was very forthright, and Khan's like, oh, so you're going to build a ship underground? How are you going to get it out? And he's like, we've mapped it out. He's like, there's a means of egress like 40 kilometers away or whatever it was. And he's like, well, what are you going to do about this? And he's like, we've thought about it. Here's what we're going to do. Oh, my people are going to go and form another colony. We're going to have hydroponics labs, even though there's no sea life in this cavernous sea. But, it'll be enough to support like half of us. And, it was very forthcoming.
Yeah, and I guess the plan is the 4-person spaceship will go into space and then hopefully find someone who can help and then bring back help. So that was some new stuff that we learned in this episode.
That's like big plan stuff. Like if I was on, among Khan's people, that would, sound like the best possible answer is like, oh yeah, the people who know how to fly a spaceship and, probably have star charts and shit, get those guys up into space. They seem benevolent too. We got really lucky here. Now, if I was one of Khan's people, I would also probably be more paranoid and stuff. So I wouldn't necessarily think that way, but.
Well, I think it's interesting because I think you see like such a different long-term goal. Like we were talking about that, like, Khan can't see that far ahead. Like, the only thing he can see is, like, I have to make this planet bend to my will, even when every single thing about this planet is saying I should leave this planet. And, like, he won't give that up. Like, even, like, when he's talking to Delmonda, he's like, how long do you think we can live down here? And then what's our next plan to stay here? And Delmonda's like, no. Like, we're getting a ship and, like, gonna find help and leave. But, like, for Khan, that's like admitting defeat, that he failed on this planet.
Yeah, like, he doesn't seem to know when to quit. That's kind of the thing in the Wrath of Khan. Like, not to cut you off, but I just want to also bring up that in the Wrath of Khan, there's this moment between young Joachim in the future, years after this, is going to be on the bridge of the Reliant with Khan and telling him, like, hey, look, boss, you have Genesis. You got us off the planet. You won. You won, bro. We can get out of here and do whatever the hell we want. We'll be cruising around with this weapon of mass destruction, the Genesis device, and like Khan won't accept that. Like he's got to have victory over Kirk. It's like I almost wonder if Khan's retreat off of Earth when they launch in the Botany Bay and just like experiencing that like utter humiliation and defeat of being literally driven off the planet. If coming back from that, if that kind of like broke him, and now like it's just so hard for him to yield at all. He can't give up a single inch. He doesn't want to give up anything. That's why like it was so hard for him to so important for him to capture the Enterprise. That's why it's so important for him to build his empire on Ceti Alpha V. Like he was so defeated that he never wants to admit defeat ever again. Just something that you made me think of just now.
Psychologically, it makes sense.
It also, because it also stems from them probably not being able to see very far in the future either, because they were bred to fight, right? And like born to fight, and like probably died. Like they probably don't have like this like sense of like longevity and like long-term goals for a people.
He can conquer, but he can't rule. That's a tale as old as time theme. Too.
We also know that when the aliens arrived, the Elboreans, that they were initially either like, Ivan was just like, kill him. And Khan was more or less on board that too. And even like Joachim was just like, well, I guess we're killing him. It's only when they had some time with them that they're, Paolo and a few others started being like, oh, they're actually really amazing. They had to like get used to the idea of sort of something outside the limited scope of what they'd been expecting of their lives through Khan.
Yeah. But I think it's also embarrassing to Khan realizing that Delmonda and the Elboreans are like 10 steps ahead of him. Like they're like, we already have like an exit strategy, and like these are all of the limitations, and we've already worked through all of these limitations. And while y'all have been squabbling with each other and like barely figuring out how to move your camp from upside to in the cave, and like containing your one person who keeps killing all these people, like while y'all were having this crazy like manic panic over there, like we've already figured out all of these things. We've actually been working on this, and I'm sure that like crushed his ego. He's like, wow, how embarrassing. Like this is my planet. And like they already figured all this stuff out.
Well, I was also thinking that from Khan's perspective, if they were to go ahead with Delmonda's plan, even if it all worked out in the best case scenario, well, what's he going to do? End up having to submit to the Federation, to Delmonda's people? I think he's like, on this planet, I can be king. Elsewhere, there's no chance. These people the technology has evolved too far ahead of me. There's alien races I know nothing about. And he hasn't, I think, stated this. Like, hasn't had this discussion, but like, I can see why he would prefer to live on like, basically rule in hell than be a slave in heaven.
That's his whole thing.
It's his whole thing.
That's his whole identity. But
we never realized though that he actually had that as presented as an option. I guess that is what he got in this storyline.
It also makes me think something that I learned as a kid growing up with other kids and seeing athletes playing track. One thing that I remember someone bringing up to me is that you can't be the type of kid who always has to be the best, because it doesn't matter how fast you are. If you're running track, you might be the fastest kid in your town. You might be the fastest kid in that district. But like, eventually, like if you go to a state relay or something, eventually, if you're like in the Olympics or something, eventually you're going to find someone who can smoke your ass. And so like, you have to always maintain a little bit of humility. Yeah,
I think Khan is like, what if I'm the last one standing? I'm the gold medalist. I'm the guy who smokes everybody else's ass.
But that's his whole thing, is like he was bred to be superior. And the further you get away from the eugenics war on Earth, the less superior you are. Further into the future, further out into space, we got these weird psychic aliens. And
you're saying Khan is kind of like a kid, like in your story of Track Meet, but I think anybody who kind of grew up a little bit on that gifted and talented side, you're like kind of hot shit in elementary school, but then you go to like middle school or high school and you're like, oh, there's a lot of smart kids.
Yeah.
Khan just hit that in the what 23rd century.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Yeah, that this guy, he would truly prefer to rule on Ceti Alpha V than serve in the anywhere else in the Star Trek universe, I guess.
Joel in the audience says Khan is a 35-year-old who ruled at high school football.
Yeah,
It's kind of
that
true.
tracks. But in this conversation with Dilmond, it is more that interesting stuff I mentioned about, you know, the debate on community responsibility to violent offenders, and I think there's really cool questions they ask, and the Ivan being judged, this prisoner being judged, it's very much, you know, kind of like Khan himself being judged. And like when Kirk judged Khan and decided to strand him on this planet, but also you know, the things that Sulu was talking about previously, when Sulu is like, yeah, like if you're unfit to cooperate in society with the rest of us and live peacefully, then there's just no place for you then. And you know, it's
But Khan made a serious attempt at evolving that Ivan didn't. So he had evolved past at least probably the place he was in when he took over the Enterprise. You know, if he had Marla by his side, he'd experienced that kind of somebody he was willing to share power with, essentially, and learn to make concessions and stuff. Then maybe, you know, he wouldn't have done that impulsive takeover of the Enterprise. I think Ursula said he did it on like not a whim, but
on instinct. He was like running on instinct.
Yeah. And like Ivan's still there, totally 100% instinct. Khan has moved past that, at least to some degree.
Yeah. But
not enough. Not enough.
Yeah, or at least like so he says, depending on who's listening.
Right. Yeah, the idea that you could, you know, that's a pretty serious tragedy that you can appear to have evolved, only to reveal, nah, I'm still pretty much holding to all my worst instincts. That sucks, man.
Sucks. Let's talk about the ending. I guess like the three big events: Marla's bug bite in the hot tub, followed by the final Khan and Ivan conversation / confrontation, and then Marla's death. But the Marla hot tub scene of Joachim standing guard while Marla enjoys the hot spring bath, and then the ill bite.
Yeah, this is a last moment of peace and comfort for her. I suppose it would have been better if she died on the spot and didn't have to continue talking, you know, to like experience the angst of knowing she was leaving behind Khan and, you know, everything else. But she kind of got at least a little bit of peace at the end, something.
Yeah, I appreciated the audio drama getting me to totally just let my guard down and forget that she was about to die. I was right at the moment where I was like, wait a minute, they're spending a long time just, you know, listening to this chick splash around in the tub. Like, what's the point of the scene? Where's this going? And then like I was like, oh wait.
But I felt like it could have been anything. Like it could have been like, Marla or Ursula or something like comes to talk to her, or like it could have. Like, yeah, something was going to happen, but I didn't assume it was going to be the death. Were you pretty sure, Taylor?
I was pretty sure she was doomed, but I didn't know, I did not think it was going to be a Ceti eel. I thought maybe she was going to drown. Maybe she was going to have some kind of, like, health issue, you know, because the sulfur thing was like a new thing that they hadn't really tested before. But the first thing I thought whenever it was like, there's eels in here, I was like, oh, so she does count as like an actual Ceti eel death. Like,
yeah, they said she did in the Wrath of Khan.
We were also like tossing up the point of like, oh, if someone is like
somebody lied.
If someone had a Ceti eel in their brain and then killed them, did they count as like a Ceti eel death?
Right.
If like
they were killed if she had died away from Khan, like and like if Ursula had said like, hey, I'm going to cover for you, go get in the spaceship, I'll tell him the eel got you. You know, there's some bodies around here that were scarred by an explosion, he won't know it wasn't you. We talked about that possibility too, and so there was possible ways out of that. But I do sort of appreciate that they said that they're like, the movie wasn't lying to you. You know,
Yeah.
this did happen.
My second thought in this is the xenomorph would never do this to Marla. I was like,
It would send a face hugger after her, though.
not when she's pregnant, right?
No, that was the Predator who wouldn't kill Predator.
Oh, I'm swapping them. Okay. But
You
yeah,
know-
no. So I was like, she'd be safe from the Predator then.
Is it?
Yeah, that was in Predator 2.
I was trying to recall if somebody in the comments were talking about whether or not Delmondo had duplicitous, and was it just random that Marla had that happen? And I think it was, but I'm like, well, what if one of the other Elboreans was like, like, hey, we kind of, yes, we're trying to be these uplifted people, but this Ivan dude killed one of our own, so what if we don't mention that, or that there's we know that there's eels down there or something like that? Is there any possibility that the Elboreans knew that's among their secrets? I don't,
Because they
think
did
it's-
scan it. Remember, like,
Right.
Delmondo was like, we scanned it. There's nothing down there. We already knew that there's nothing. in the
Right, and
Sunless
they
Sea."
haven't given us any particular reason to think that their tech would fail. Yes, it could have been that. I guess they did have a damaged ship. They've mentioned that they've had to scrap. Like the best they could do is put together an escape ship that will hold 4 people.
They actually make it sound like it here that the Elboreans didn't know what the sea life would be like in the caves, because Khan tells Delmonda that like our people scouted the Sunless Sea and there's no sea life in it. So
Yeah, but Delmondo said that they had scanned it and already knew that.
Yeah, because they were
Okay.
going to do hydroponics labs. They said that they had that and something else that were going to basically allow them to. You can still live off the sea even though there's no fish in it.
I think though Khan is gonna blame the Elboreans for
Right, he's
Marla's
gonna
death.
think-
They're gonna be like, you said there was nothing in here.
yeah,
And
they've
they're
already
gonna be like, well, we didn't scan the hot springs. We just scanned the Sunless Sea. Is gonna be the argument.
yeah
I
they've
think.
already illustrated within this episode that he will jump to conclusions as far as like Elborean motivations go. So, before
But yeah,
we
that's going to be rough. I do wonder if it could just be a technological mishap. Like, okay, well, we didn't say because we know how paranoid you guys are, but that our scanners weren't at peak capacity because of the crash. Like, it could have been.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to have been a deliberate thing. They could have kept that secret just because they knew how much the augments were untrustworthy.
I still don't think it was deliberate, but I might be wrong. Like y'all,
I don't think so either, but
I like y'all pointing out the possibility though, because I hadn't considered that either.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There's going to be some interesting reveals in the next few episodes, or next 2 episodes.
But before we talk about Marla's final moments, I just want to go into that Khan and Ivan scene. Ivan's failed assassination attempt, but that is when Khan, explains that he is learning to compromise and he has agreed to share leadership with Delmonda, and Ivan's just kind of like laughing at that, like, oh, that's so ridiculous. No way you would agree to that. And that's when he offers him the poison cup, and that Khan immediately recognizes, and they have a bit of a fight. It sounds like we hear them fight, and yeah, it's
Khan like kind of wins the fight, right? He's like, "Don't get up" or something like that.
Yeah.
It's strangely moving because you can tell that Khan is like won the fight. He's dominating over Ivan and is choosing not to kill him because Ivan is so sad and crying about Marla changed you and these filthy aliens have influenced your mind and all this stuff. He's begging Khan to kill him, and then it's kind of cold-hearted, but when Khan gives us a bit of a villain monologue, and he does admit, basically it's my only option is to have this alliance with Delmonda, but it's not permanent. I'm still going to have to be true to my nature and true to who I am. He says I'll wear this alliance, while it serves my purposes. I'll wear it proudly like a cloak, but I still got to be myself underneath. But he spares Ivan here, and he admits that, like, I am doing this, I am sparing you, not because I want to spare you, but because this will show Delmonda, oh, look how merciful I can be. And he actually refers to this as he's mercilessly sparing Ivan.
That's a great turn of phrase, like merciless mercy, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, I wonder, like, if would Ivan be like, hey, Delmonda, he's fucking with you. He's not really doing this. This is a trick.
Yeah, I don't even know if that would occur to Ivan as an option to try to form an alliance of convenience with
his patterns indicate
the alien.
One-dimensional thinking.
Yeah, he's not even up to Khan's two-dimensional level.
Yeah.
But this Ivan is to be banned from the cave sanctuary, so he's just gonna have to live in the wilderness.
Yeah, it seems like that's where Khan kind of got his notions about exile. Well, aside from his own life, obviously that's I guess when he turned it on Kirk. I did think it was I could have done without Ivan kind of shrieking Khan in the Kirk style. I didn't think it needed it. I'm not sure if it accomplished anything other than to be a little cheeseball. But at the same time, I felt like it was a reasonable reaction from him. Like that he was, in anguish, we know, over this. I guess if anything, like if I want to read anything into why, he had a similar reaction to Kirk's, it's that's what Khan does to people. he gets them, pissed off to like a next level of degrees.
Well, let's talk about the final moments with Marla. The Elborean doctor, Tamaris, tries to treat Marla, and even the Elboreans with their medical technology say there's nothing they can do. And I like that they thought to, have Khan ask them to use their telekinesis. He's just like, well, just use your minds. Like, when y'all bent up our weapons, we'll just do that to the Ceti Alpha. And
do that thing you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at least to explain to the listeners that that's not an option.
Yeah, I appreciated that they did that. There was a lot of sort of thoughtful, sort of slightly novelistic things like that, or Delmonda saying, "Here's our plan for getting out after we rebuild our ship and what we're exactly going to do." A lot of nice detail. I wonder if Khan believes Delmonda that they couldn't save Marla, or is he going to look back on this and be like, "You lied."
He's so irrationally mad when he's just like, use your minds to stop it now, or I'll kill you both. I'll kill you with my bare hands if you can't do this.
Right.
And it's like his refusal to accept reality sometimes. It's like it's the same thing as like refusing to admit defeat, but
that was him, the equivalent of in Wrath of Khan when he's like, full impulse power. Damn you! When he gets to that place, he just freaks his shit.
Yeah, he can't change course. He's just got to keep leaning in harder and harder to get through.
Which is the writer's doing a good job of, even though this is a very expanded version of his backstory, I felt like he's been true to the Khan we knew, while at the same time they've certainly dangled that growth was possibly within his scope. He could have maybe done it but for basically these various setbacks that made him just he's like oh, got to go back into total conqueror fighter mode.
And with Marla's death, I guess I do like it being her choice, with it being like her agency when she's the one who chooses the baby over herself. But I feel for Khan in that moment when I get it from his perspective. He's like, I don't want to lose you. I don't want to do all this stuff without you. He's like I already love
but
you.
Yeah, the kid is a hypothetical.
Right. That's what I was about to say. It's like this.
He loves this woman,
Like, you're here. Like, you
He
exist. Like,
changed
we
for
have
her,
this.
or
Yeah.
tried to change for her.
Yeah. And
It's like
also,
what
like,
Khan told. Sorry, Taylor. But it's like what Khan told Ursula and Mado in the last episode. It's like, hey, y'all can try again. You know, it's like it doesn't have to be the end of the world. Y'all can try again. But
yeah, he's like saying what he was telling. Like he's was that like practice what you preach almost a little bit
Yeah.
in that sense. But also like I can't. Okay, this is where I'm gonna probably go off the rails and I'm gonna lose a lot of people here. But do we want to leave a baby with Khan one without Marla? Like, just like, can you imagine Khan raising a baby by himself? I can't. Like, no. And then I get that like this is written as like this is Marla's choice, but I still it's so hard because it's like, well, someone wrote her to make this choice, right? Like,
Sure, that's true.
So like
In the end, there are still writers pulling all these
it's-
strings.
right. And so it's hard for me still like to not just be like, oh yeah, let's just have Marla be an incubator for this baby. And again, for me that's like hard. I've never been pregnant and I don't plan to be, but like I can't imagine making this choice as Marla. And it's like really hard for me to understand being in this position. So like I can't say for sure what decision I would make, but like
I mean, I will say this: it came up on Marla with no preparation.
true.
She was suddenly in this compromised state. Then she knew it was like finding out you're terminally ill and you had 12 hours or 24 hours more of being yourself at best. And I think from that perspective, she's like, I would rather that they save this. She probably would be investing a somewhat almost irrational, desperate hope that the baby would make Khan continue to grow, and that she had kind of, she did have that I think that thing that I don't have kids either, so but I understand, that I can understand that sort of intense maternal concept where she's like, no matter what, I'm going to put this kid first. Everything becomes secondary to it, at least in the moment. I think that's where she was, but I do understand, like, it came up on her fast, and out of nowhere. What would they? By the way, what the other option is? Was there truly another option? Did they say? What did the or what was the theoretical thing that could have been done? She could have, they would have lost the baby if they
Remove the eel.
but if they removed the eel, something about it, like the part of her nervous system or something that would have kept the baby alive would have let it die. I forget exactly what they said. But there was the possibility that they could have done the flip.
I wasn't clear if there was an option where they could guarantee Marla's survival.
Yeah, I think the options were basically like, Marla, you die and definitely the baby lives, or we try to save both of you, but you'll probably both not live. Like, it's like a 50-50 for y'all to survive, but this one's 100% the baby will live. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I can see her, like, she's a pretty selfless person for the most part. But it's not like she has no sense of herself, sense of, being someone who wants to live as she is. So, it's a complex scene. I think your feelings are reasonable.
Yeah, I the thing that I have a problem with this is it's better because in this she does choose this. But in so many real life cases, like, women don't get the option like to abort if it's going to save their life. And
yeah, like in some states it's illegal, like in the state that we're talking in right now.
Right.
Yeah, and so it seems a little, to me, like, these topics are very sensitive.
Messaging?
Women have more reproductive rights on Ceti Alpha V than they do in the state of Texas.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
But yeah, so that just makes me feel like there was even a whole case not too long ago where a woman who had died was literally kept alive on life support, even though, like, she was physically dead so that her body could keep raising the baby, even though she had said that she wanted to die. And so like it just feels a little bit too close to that situation to have come up in this for me. Like it was just
Yeah, no, it's fucking gruesome and cruel.
And
Yeah.
the fact, like you said, it is true. Like everything that we like or don't like about this, it all does come from writers. So
Right.
it's fair to ask, is the writer messaging too? You know, that is something worth considering. I've had these thoughts in like 100 other stories I've read, and sometimes it pisses me off.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think, oh well, this was, you know, I guess at least I'm glad that we know that this was in some way coming from a male and female writing team. We don't know what the exact, you know, breakdown was.
Right. And I think one of the things that's hard for me to get behind on these situations is when it's like, oh, well, we know the mother and we know like her contributions and we know what her potential future is like, right? Because it's like she's alive and has a history and like already serves a role.
Right.
And so it's hard for me to conceptualize losing her in favor of like another mouth to feed and raise and possibly like it's like almost in the situation it just seems like a worst case is to be like, oh, here's a baby that we have to take care of who can't contribute, that's probably going to starve to death in 6 months if we can't feed it. And
Right.
like I actually remember in high school we played this like, you're on an island and here are the 12 people who are there and you have to sacrifice 2, and like one of them was an infant and I chose to kill the infant and everyone was so mad at me because obviously like it was like a 6-month-old baby or whatever, and like but it like didn't make sense like if you're in like the case of like survival, right? And so, like, it sounds so horrible. Like, these are horrible ethical things like to talk about.
No,
like,
but it's
you know,
interesting. Like, I appreciate that it prompts these kind of deeper thoughts. And there is something though. It's like, but there's also the thing where it's like, well, people aren't always rational,
yeah,
and you can be irrational in very specific ways. You know, I think the connection between a parent and a kid can easily override a lot of stuff. But that's still like they still had to come up with this. Like we talked about this. There was nothing indicated in Wrath of Khan about Marla ever having been pregnant. Khan just says, "I lost my wife," right?
right.
So they invented that story with this ending in mind, or this ending is where they ended up. So, but let me ask you this, Taylor. Obviously, the story isn't quite done yet, but that plot point probably is. I think that specific plot point. Did it like put you off of things? You probably can't know really until you get to the end, but
Yeah, I'm less excited about the next episode now. That's pretty just much how I feel. Like
okay.
I'm just bummed because I really really like Marla. I feel like we all do, right?
Right.
And I would have been more comfortable with this being the last episode and being like, oh well, now we're kind of caught up. But now that I'm like, oh, we have 2 more episodes and Marla's not in them, like I'm like, ugh, I don't even know if I care. I mean, I am gonna listen to them, and I'm sure it will be just as amazing as everything else that's come out.
But if we should find out that Lear is her kid, and we have some respect and awareness of Lear, then she's not just a hypothetical now. Then she
Right.
is somebody that we know has lived an interesting life and is pushing back even against bound Starfleet, weaknesses and oh my gosh, prejudices against augments.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that might make things a little bit better, but that's something we'll kind of have to see.
I think I will need a little bit of like some kind of commentary from Lear, like recognizing the loss of Marla. You know what I mean? And not just being like, oh, I mean, I think they would do this, but you know, like my mom died for me, you know, kind of thing. But like some kind of like, oh, I'm like a continuation of her work or something. Like, I don't know. Like, there's got to be something, I think, at least a callback to be like, Marla is still important and wasn't just an incubator.
Right.
Because I think
They did
that's where
such a
my
good
brain
job.
is at.
They did such a good job of expanding her character from the person who in the original story was essentially like an interesting but kind of lovesick, infatuated woman in many ways. And they made her like notably more than that. You know, they really expanded on that. And it would kind of suck if it was just like, well, that was who she was right up until she died, and then that was the end of her.
Yeah.
You know, with no sense of sort of legacy. But it definitely feels like legacy is going to be hanging over the last 2 episodes in some way.
Sure. Yeah.
I really like.
Oh, go ahead.
Well,
Go ahead,
you go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I also really liked having Ursula in these scenes as someone who has just lost a kid herself. Mm-hmm. And it being like that role reversal of like Mado just lost her baby. Yeah. And now in the other pregnancy on Ceti Alpha, like we're losing the mom instead of the baby.
That's what I was going to say. The execution of the death was really good. Just, I mean, like I love it being, you know, Marla's choice of her having like that line, I am Marla, I have spoken, kind of calling back to previously when Khan dropped the I am Khan on her, and she said, well, I am Marla. So,
yeah, she was kind of pushing back in that episode a few back. Where
that was
she
a couple
like,
episodes ago.
She's like,
so.
kind of like, all right, you're going to like proclaim yourself superior because of who you are. She's like, you know what? I can proclaim it too.
So cool callback to that, and then Ursula. I loved Ursula after just experiencing loss and just being at Mado's bedside through some troubling times. Ursula telling Khan, even though like we know Ursula is on the outs with Khan right now in like big ways, like she was like ready to have like Ivan kill this guy, but in this moment she says, hold her hand and talk to her. Don't make her do this alone. And I've never experienced this with like a human being who is passing away, like holding them as they die. But I've gone through that with animals, and just thinking of just like this man with his wife and him like in this moment to talk to her as she's fading away. He breaks down and agrees with her favored poet, with Coleridge. And starts, even though like he was complaining about like he didn't like the poem, he starts reciting Kubla Khan. It's like the last thing that she hears as she fades away. I felt like the execution of all of that was extremely well done.
I wanted to dive in on that later on. Like I have to like not hear, but rather I read that poem and read that scene. As I recall, was there a suggestion of like the city was something like that was built in honor of somebody, in honor of a woman, or you know, to exalt her in some way, aside from just being something that she liked. I felt like it maybe had some bearing on this, you know, the story, you know, maybe some analogy to it, but I don't know the poem well enough to say off the top of my head.
Yeah, but the whole scene where Khan is saying goodbye to Marla is brutal. That's when I was like sobbing. Pretty much like from as soon as like they were like, oh, basically you have to choose. I was crying like the whole rest of it. And then when
Naveen
Khan starts,
Naveen Andrews really gave it so much work in this one. I think to show how somebody is sort of emotionally strong as Khan, who generally expresses himself through anger. We've seen him express himself sometimes through humor, but we've never seen like just anguish, just terror, just the total breaking of him as we have here.
Yeah.
Well,
this is, I think, like the first time he's actually losing someone he needed, and not just like someone that he knew or worked with or fought with, you know? And like this is like his opposite and his companion, you know, like this person has like helped him grow in such a short amount of time, and he's like, I think a little bit better like since knowing Marla. Like obviously he's gonna get worse, but I don't know, that whole breakdown where he's just like, you can't, like, I can't lose you, and like, you know, I don't know, just the whole reasoning with her before she makes her decision. Like, oh man, all of that was just like knife to heart, you know?
Yeah, they could have had this be something that happened kind of quickly. Instead, they sort of expanded it and let it be something that takes several minutes to happen, so that you have to sit with it the same way Khan has to sit with it and feel him break down. You can feel his voice shaking. You know, he's
Yeah.
on. He is losing it. And yeah, I thought that was like, that's his Academy Award scene kind of, but he
When I
really
think
amazing work.
one of the advantages of the show we talk about is it being all audio only and that we have to like imagine it. And I think that kind of like emotional audio that we get from Naveen is like you're in it. So like you're imagining yourself there. And like I think that's
Right,
almost like more powerful because instead of like witnessing Naveen Andrews and like whoever is playing Marla, but like imagining
Ren
and seeing
Schmidt.
them, you're imagining yourself like as
mm,
Khan or you're imagining yourself like as Marla. Like that's how I when I'm in the audiobook, like
right.
whoever's kind of talking is who I am, like as we're playing through the audiobook.
That's an interesting
And so
notion.
you're kind of like feeling it firsthand, I think, more than like if you were witnessing it as like a
Well,
movie or
yeah.
a TV show.
As a counterpoint in Deep Space Nine, when Cisco breaks down as the writer in what was the episode?
Far beyond the stars or beyond the farthest stars. Those are the two that
Yeah,
Beyond the
always
farthest
mix
that
star.
up.
one.
But yeah,
It's an amazing
Vinny Russell.
scene. It's an amazing scene, next level acting. But you are, I think, focused on it as this character, and maybe not quite thinking of yourself in the role in the way that an audio play does. And that's not really to take away anything from DS9. That's an amazing episode. But there's an added element, yeah, that sometimes I think may come from something that in a book, there's it takes place in your mindscape, and to some degree, that's also happening in an audio play, just in a different sort of way. So yeah, it challenges you to be sitting there with it the way Khan is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, any other thoughts on this episode?
I think I said all my stuff. Excited to see where this goes.
Yeah,
If
only two more.
as I think Joanne and maybe some other people were guessing in the thing, if Mado and Ursula get off, escape on the ship with the child, and maybe who's the sorry, I can't say his name, the main alien,
Delmonda.
Oh.
Delmonda. If they are the ones who make it out, basically two parents, one child, and Delmonda as pilot, that would be the four, and that would potentially be pretty satisfying. It would be nice to imagine that a family could actually have emerged from this and even had good lives. Would take a little bit of the bite out of how otherwise morose it might feel in those last two episodes.
Yeah.
Just nothing but tragedy. By seeing how it plays out for their kid, maybe not.
Well, if that's all we got, then we can move on to the Gorn egg section of the show, where I like to point out the Easter eggs, in jokes, and continuity connections. Don't really have much for this episode, other than Dr. Lear mentioning that among the people with augment DNA that are discriminated against, many of them are in Starfleet. So probably talking about people like
Una Chin Riley.
Una Chen Riley and Laan Noonien Singh. Although we don't know the status of either one by that point, by like post Star Trek 6. I think they're probably both dead. They're both gonna die in the remaining 2 seasons of Strange New Worlds.
Jeez,
Who knows?
dark.
No, I think Laan will, but I think if they're gonna do that Star Trek Year 1 show, they're gonna make Rebecca Romaine be Captain Kirk's boss. She's going to be the Admiral April role on that show. I think that's the plan. We'll see if any of that happens, but who knows. But we don't have any time for subspace transmissions, but we talked about this episode for over an hour and a half. You know how the three of us feel about it. Please let us know your thoughts on I Am Marla or any of the Star Trek Con episodes, and we might share them next week when we talk about the penultimate episode. Just want to let people know, and this is important for the people who like to show up and watch live on YouTube, that we're going to do something crazy next week and do the show a couple days early because it's Halloween next Friday, and we want to celebrate with the children in our neighborhood that are going to knock on our door and want some candy. We don't want our house to get egged, so we gotta... We don't want
the 1950s?
Yeah, we don't want any tricks, so we got to provide the treats. But we're going to do the show on Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Central Time. That's going to be Wednesday, October 29th at 10 a.m. Central. So we'll be a little early with next week's con, but then we should be back to normal after that. So, but please come back next week for more con talk at a different date and time, but hopefully the same quality of conversation. And after we're done with Star Trek Con, we're gonna do those Space Seed and Wrath of Khan shows. We're gonna do some backtracking retrospectives to get ready for Starfleet Academy, and then next we're getting more Star Trek, at least like TV Star Trek next year than we got this year. So we're gonna have a season of Academy, a season of Strange New Worlds. Looking forward to all of that. Kind of feels like we have a lot of Star Trek next year after not getting much this year. So, but enjoying Star Trek Con here towards the end of the year. So closing out strong. But come back next week, and until then, as always, live long and prosper, y'all.
Subscribe to YouTube to watch the Tex-Trek podcast live or listen to us later on your favorite podcast platform. Follow Stephen Fothery on socials at TXTrek. Thank you and take care.